Welcome into episode 54 of the 301 show. We have some major breaking news for both the Vikings and the Twins here today. Also, the Wolves and the Wild. The Wild continue their winning streak. The Wolves turn their losing streak around, and the Frost go into the Olympic break on a high note. All of that and more here on the 301 show. But before we get into it, I do ask if you could please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. If you do subscribe to the channel, you can always unsubscribe later if you do not like the content of the show. It is also free to subscribe and to leave a like down below. So that being said, let's get into it and let us start discussing these Minnesota teams in episode 54 here.
From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
All right, on to the first team segment here of the episode, the Wolves' Den. The Timberwolves are now 30-19 on the season. They are moved back up to 5th in the Western Conference. They are 8th in the entire NBA, and they, continue, or they have snapped their 5-game losing streak here as they lost to the Golden State Warriors 111-85. That was the game that was supposed to be on Saturday that got delayed to Sunday, and that it just seemed like a very like low energy stadium at that point, and like it just didn't seem like anybody was really that into it. But the Warriors stayed in town to play the Wolves again on Monday, which the Wolves bounced back with a 108-83 victory. They then traveled to Dallas to play the Mavericks, and the Wolves won that one 118-105, and then came back home to take on the Thunder, which they won 123-111. That brings the season rankings up here to 119 points per game, which is 5th in the NBA. The field goal percentage is 48.1%. That's tied for 4th. 3-point percent is 37.4%, which is 4th in the NBA. Free throw percentage, again, is the biggest thing that needs to get cleaned up here. It's at 74.8%, which is tied for 28th in the league. Rebounds per game is 45. That is 11th. Blocks per game is 5.6, which is 7th in the league. Turnover differential is minus 0.3, which is 17th in the NBA. Again, that has gotten a lot better. It was minus 0.8 last week, and it's up half of a turnover in the last week. The points against per game is 114.1. That is 11th in the NBA. That's moving in the wrong direction a little bit there, but not too drastically. The field goal against percentage is 45.9%, which is 5th. The 3-point percentage against is 35.2%, which is tied for 10th. Rebounds against is 43.2, which is tied for 8th, and then 2nd in the NBA is blocks against per game. That is sitting at 3.9. So they are not getting blocked when they're putting up their shots. As only one team is ahead of them in that category. But again, like I said, the Wolves lost their 5th game in a row. They had lost 4 straight last week to Houston, San Antonio, Utah, and Chicago, which again, Houston and San Antonio are understandable losses because those are 2 really good teams. You're also missing Rudy for both of those games, and you were missing Ant for the Houston game. But the Jazz and the Bulls were just bad losses at that point. Like, the Jazz are actively trying to lose, and I believe the Bulls are too, seemingly. But again, you lose to the Warriors, which again, just a weird game, weird set of circumstances, and you do bounce back against that Warriors team the next night to win that one by roughly as many points as they beat you the night before. So, then winning the 2 more games against the Mavericks and then the Thunder too, beating them by a dozen points is absolutely fantastic to see. So, again, I think that they are back kind of on the right track, but again, it's basically the free throw percentage is what is just killing them right now. Is they're struggling with that. They do, they may have an opportunity here coming up because they're in Memphis for 2 games, playing the Grizzlies at 7 p.m. on Saturday, January 31st, and then on Monday at 6:30 p.m. February 2nd, before they go north of the border to take on the Toronto Raptors at 6:30 on Wednesday, February 4th. So again, just opportunities to get better here, and you have to just take these points. They're basically free points at this point, and you have to take those points when teams are giving them to you. It's like the scene from Moneyball where he was saying, Billy Bean was saying, if they lay down a bunt, just throw it to first and take. The teams are giving you a free out. Just take the out. And so, if teams are fouling you, take the extra point. Make that free throw and take the extra basket. So, I think that they are, just obviously need to get better with that. As the turnover differential is the next lowest rated thing, and that's at 17th. So that's right around the middle of the pack there. And the next lowest one after that is an 11th ranking. So if they can get the free throw percentage up, that'll obviously increase the points for per game. And it'll help ease some of the just the point differential and make some of these other statistics better as they just improve, play a little bit more free at that point because they have bigger leads. But the one unfortunate piece of news is with that 5th straight loss, the one to the Golden State Warriors, where they lost 111-85. That did end the streak of 100-plus points at 103 games. So that streak is now over, but they have started a new streak, which is sitting at 3 games at the moment. So the Wolves sit at 3 games in a row with 100-plus points scored. Hopefully they can send that throughout the entire, or finish the rest of the season on that streak. And there's again some more rumors that Giannis did say that he'd be open with to play with Anthony Edwards. So there's some more Giannis to the Wolves rumors heating up here, and we can look at that next week. If it actually happens on I believe it's February 5th, which is next Thursday. I believe that is the trade deadline. And again, my official prediction is I think they're going after a Colby White, or someone like Colby White, instead of a Giannis, because I think that they would just have to give up way too much for a Giannis at this point. And I think it would be you need to give up to make salaries work. You need to give up a Julius Randle being that starting piece there, and then you'd probably have to give up to make the salaries work even more. You'd probably have to give up Rudy Gobert, and you have to give up to make the value work Jaden McDaniels and maybe another first round pick on top of that. And I don't know if the Wolves should do that, and I think that is just destroying your core at that point. And I think that especially Jaden McDaniels, with him being so good defensively on the perimeter, being able to keep him, if they're able to keep him instead of giving him up, that would be way more of a benefit to if they were somehow able to get Giannis and keep Jaden McDaniels. That is obviously the best solution. That would be the preferred solution, and I think that they I just don't know if they'd be able to swing a trade for a Giannis if it doesn't include Jaden McDaniels' value and again, as the 10K takes guys pointed out too, when I talked to them, we were talking about just how much of an appreciation, because they're like me, we're all more of hockey guys than basketball guys, and have gotten into the Wolves since they've been good over the last few years. But we're all kind of saying, like, we're appreciating more just how much chemistry matters in the NBA. And it's like, do you want to blow up that much of your team and that many important pieces of your team to try to get Giannis? And yes, Giannis is a fantastic player, and don't get me wrong there, but it just seems like that might be more of an off-season move, that you go get Giannis than a trade deadline move. So those are the two hesitancies that I have of trading for Giannis, and it's nothing against Giannis himself. It's just trading for anyone that massive. I think you can slip Colby White into the lineup a lot easier, because you wouldn't have to give up as many top-notch players like Jaden McDaniels and like Naz Reid, if you have to give him up, or like Julius Randle. You wouldn't have to give up, your starting players for Colby White. You might have to give up the one starter that you might have to give up for Colby White is a Dante DiVincenzo. And I don't know if they would do that, because Dante DiVincenzo has multiple years left on his contract, and Colby White is an expiring contract. So there is that part of it too. But we finally have got some news here for the Lynx, as their schedule was announced, and they opened the season at home against the Atlanta Dream on Sunday, May 10th at 6 p.m. That was taking place at the Target Center. Hopefully, for the Wolves' sake here, I hope there's some controversy of why the Wolves are playing earlier that day, or why the Lynx have to move their game earlier. Because if the Wolves are still playing in May, it means at least the beginning of May, that means they made it to at least the second round of the playoffs. So I actually do hope there's some controversy that day on who gets the Target Center for their game, or maybe I hope that there's not, and it's because the Wolves are playing on the road in Game 4 of a sweep. But who knows? That's just when the Lynx start their season. They also end the season with 2 games, a home and home, against Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, to end the regular season. So hopefully Caitlin Clark isn't injured like she was this last year, and actually plays against the the Lynx in their final regular season meeting. In terms of predictions, I had 4 come off the board. First one is that the Wolves, I said that the Wolves' 100-plus point streak will hit at least 110 games. I was off by 7. If they had hit it against the Warriors, they would be up to 107 games, so I'd be 3 games short at this point if they had just gotten 15 more points against the Warriors. Second prediction is that the Wolves beat the Mavericks by 20-plus points. They did not. They won by 13. So still won, just not by 20 or more. Said that Ant drops 40-plus in either of the 2 games against the Warriors. He did not. And then I said the Wolves win at least 2 out of their next 3 games, which they did. That included the loss to Golden State, but then they beat Golden State again and then won against the Dallas Mavericks. We got 3 predictions coming on the board here. I said the Lynx will win the regular season series against the Fever, including that the regular season series will be. I'll need to keep this one on the board until at least the second to last game of the regular season. The second prediction here is that the Wolves will win the Western Conference Finals, I should say. So they will make it to the NBA Finals is my prediction. And then the third prediction I have here is that the Wolves will win both games against the Grizzlies coming up here in Memphis. So their next 2 games, they will win against the Grizzlies. Welcome in now to Rinkside Rundown. The Wild again continue their hot streak here. They have improved to 31-14-10 on the season. They have 72 points and sit in second place in both the Central Division and the Western Conference. They only trail the Colorado Avalanche, who have 79 points in 52 games played. And they are tied with the Tampa Bay Lightning with 72 points tied for second in the NHL. They are 13th in goals for per game with 3.18. Goals against, they sit at 2.82 goals against per game, which is 7th in the NHL. They have 7 shutouts, which is second only behind the New York Islanders. The power play sitting at 24.3% on the season. That is 6th in the NHL. Penalty kill is 77.6%, which is tied for 24th. The face-off percentage has taken a nosedive here, which again just proves that my theory from last week that they need a center is correct, as they have 46.4% on the face-off dot. That is 31st in the NHL. The shots per game is 28.7. That is 12th. Shots against is 29.8, which is tied for 26th. Gus Bus has a 18-9-6 record on the year. That sits him at a 910 save percentage, which is 12th in the league, a 257 goals against average, which is tied for 15th, and 3 shutouts, which is tied for 4th. The Great Wall of St. Paul is 13-5-4 on the season. He has a 914 save percentage, which is tied for 5th. He has a 2.71 goals against average, which is tied for 26th in the NHL. And he has 4 shutouts, which is tied for 2nd, only behind Ilya Sorokin of said New York Islanders. Over the last week, they played 3 games on Hockey Day, Minnesota. They lost to the Florida Panthers 4-3 in overtime. Then they played the Foligno Bowl against the Chicago Blackhawks, which Marcus Foligno and Nick Foligno are brothers. Marcus plays for Minnesota, Nick for Chicago. And the Wild would be down 3-0 early in the second period. and come back and pulled out the 4-3 shootout win. Now, I did see, again, some people were saying, obviously, because he let in 3 goals early and let in a goal on less than a minute and a half into the game, that Wally didn't play that well. I actually thought Wally looked pretty good. I thought that he was actually the reason they were even close in that game, and had a chance to come back and win, because I thought the team just looked out of it. They looked tired. They looked just not like themselves. And it took a late comeback to win that game, and a Spurgeon goal late to tie the game at 3. But then last night, as I am recording this, Thursday, they ended up beating the Calgary Flames 4-1, which the third goal that was scored in the game was scored in the third period, and it was set up on a power play, and it was one of the prettiest goals I have seen, and I think it is something that we'll get a lot of here. It was Boldy from Kaprizov and Hughes, which again I hope we hear a lot of, especially in the playoffs this year, of Boldy scoring from Kaprizov and Hughes, or Kaprizov scoring from Boldy and Hughes. And hopefully we hear a lot more of on the power play with those 3 too. But again, we look ahead here. There's 3 more games before the Olympic break, and some of the Wild players go to Milan. They play in Edmonton on Saturday, January 31st at 9 p.m. to take on the Oilers. They then come back home on Monday, February 2nd for a 6:30 game against Le Montreal Canadiens. And then last game before the break is Wednesday, February 4th in Nashville against the Predators at 7 p.m. But again, I just still think that the biggest thing that they need is a center, and we talked about this a little bit last week of they're willing to give up Jesper Wallstedt. And again, I think it still depends on not only who it's for, obviously, but who Wallstedt is going to. Like I would be willing to give up Wallstedt for a player if it meant it was a top line center. If he was a top line center and you could slot Eriksson Ek then as the second line center, and Wallstedt was going to a team not in our division. I do not want to send Wallstedt to an in-division rival, and you look back at this in 5 years and you say that was a mistake to trade Wallstedt away. It was a mistake even more to send him to a division rival, because you're playing him 7 times in a regular season. I know it's not exactly 7 times. It's less than that, but it feels like it's 7 times you play each division rival. But I just think it is an absolute mistake to send Wallstedt, I guess, unless you win a Stanley Cup this year. If a top line center could basically guarantee that you win a Stanley Cup, and it might, I still think that it's a mistake to send Wally to a division rival. I'm not saying that it's a mistake to trade Wally away. I'm just saying the division rival is what scares me a little bit there. And I think if you can send him somewhere like out east to the Eastern Conference, and he goes somewhere out there, and you're able to get a top line center back. And I don't think, like I brought up the name Vincent Trocheck last week. He has been very much linked to the Wild because the Wild have called and asked about him. And I think that you wouldn't need to give up Wally to go get a Vincent Trocheck, but I don't think Vincent Trocheck is a line 1C or a 1C. I think he's more of a second or a third line center that can win faceoffs, and that might be what you need. But if he is a 2C, then you can put him on that second line center and keep Eriksson Ek as the top line center guy. But I do think that the Wild, again, just looking at the fact that their faceoff percentage is 46.4%, and they're 31st in the league. Like these top teams are just winning faceoffs, and they're controlling the puck early. And I'm pulling up what the actual face-off statistics look like here, because I when I take these notes, I generally only look at the where the Wild rank and not other teams, unless it's like the Wild are ranked second or something, like I can see that the Islanders are ahead of them in shutouts. But if you look at this here, the top three face-off teams are Toronto, Ottawa, and New York. Now, Ottawa and New York are in a complete free fall at this point, but Toronto has clawed their way back. They started off terrible, and they're the number one face-off team in the league. And then number 4, you get the Edmonton Oilers, and number 5, you get the Dallas Stars. So there's two, again, really good teams. One team was in the Stanley Cup this year. The other team is third in the Western Conference. You've got the Boston Bruins, who are actually doing decently well this year. They're 67 points on the season. Then you got the New York Islanders in 7th place, and the Nashville Predators, who are again in complete free fall, are in 8th, and then 9th is the Detroit Red Wings, who are over 70 points. Number 10 is the Colorado Avalanche, and so all 10 of those teams are over 50% on the faceoff, and there's to get to 40%, you go down to the Washington Capitals at 19th, and they're 49.8%. 18th is the Blues at 50% even, and you need to be a good face-off team, I think, to legitimately compete in for these playoff spots and to make a deep run and I'll go back to even last year and just see what it looked like on the face-off dot. And the Oilers, again, made it to the Stanley Cup. They were 51.5%. They're in 9th. And actually, the Florida Panthers were actually 48.6% on the face-off dot, but they were 25th in the league, and they won the Stanley Cup. So, but again, that was better than the Wild last year. The Wild were 29th at 46.6%. And I just think the Wild need to get better on the face-off dot. And even if they don't get someone that's like a goal scorer, they just need to win face-offs. Because I do think they have two great goal scorers in Boldy and Kaprizov. It's just they need to get someone that can get them the puck off the face-off. And I think Vincent Trocheck is a fantastic option for that, and he is pretty good at assisting. I think he's up over. I think he's got 20-something assists on the year this season for a bad Rangers team. So I think he could very much help that top line if you want to put him up there. And I know I said that he isn't a top line center, but if you could get him out there with Boldy and Kaprizov and have him just winning faceoffs, that would, I think, boost just the scoring and the output of that top line. And that top line is already producing. But if your top line, if you included a guy, assuming we'll take the top line plus the top defensive pair with the wingers being Boldy and Kaprizov, and then the D pair being Faber and Hughes. If you add a guy that's getting them the puck on the faceoff, because we looked at it a few weeks ago, and Trocheck was up like 57% from the faceoff dot, or 56% on the faceoff dot. And I think if you added that to that top line and they were able to just control the puck a lot more and get more opportunities, more pucks thrown at the net, I think that would be very beneficial for this team, for a line that's already producing pretty well as is. If you could just increase that even more, that this team is going to get even better. And then Eriksson Ek would move down to the second line, and he'd help the second line produce a little bit more. But we'll move on to the Frost here. The Frost are now 7. They have 7 wins in regulation, 2 overtime and shootout wins, 3 overtime and shootout losses, and then 3 regulation losses for 28 points. That is good for second in the PWHL going into the Olympic break. Yes, the Frosts are already on the Olympic break. The goals for is 48 goals for on the season. That is first in the league. The goals against is third with 31 goals against. Third, I should say that is third fewest. And then the power play is second in the league at 20.5%. The penalty kill has taken a big step forward here over the last couple of games. That is 80.6% on the penalty kill. That is fifth. They were in dead last in the league last week. They had played 2 games in the last week. Both of them at home. They took down the New York Sirens 6-2, and then the Vancouver Golden Eyes 4-1. And that Golden Eyes game, they were up 3-0 in the first period, and then the Golden Eyes had all the momentum in the world in the second period, getting a goal, making that a 3-1 game, and then the Frost just shut the door in the third period and got the late goal and won 4-1. I got a prediction coming off the board here. Again, we're not doing a look ahead because we're not doing a look ahead because the Vancouver game was their last game before the Olympic break, so they do not play anymore here until Milan. So a lot of the Frost players are going overseas to Italy to play in the tournament or in the Olympics. But I have a prediction coming off the board here. I said that the Frost beat New York and Vancouver. That was correct. That brings it up to 44 total correct predicted out of 107 total predictions predicted for 41% correct. I've got 3 more coming on the board here. I said the Frost and the Wild both finish in the top 3 in their respective leagues, and I meant to say in the regular season, so that is regular season where they finish. Said the Wild and or Frost win their respective cup this season in the 2026 season, and then the Wild get at least 4 of their next 6 points. So they will win 2 games or win a game and then lose the other 2 in overtime, but they will get at least 4 of their next 6 points. All right, on to Target Field Talkers now. We got 2 pieces of news. The first one we'll get to is a trade that the Twins made. It is that the Twins and Rockies did make a trade. The Rockies acquire Edward Julian and Pearson Ohl from the Twins, the utility infielder and the pitcher, Pearson Ohl. And then the Twins acquired Jace Kaminska. And this again, I think, goes more to the news, a little bit more to the news we'll get to in just a second, but it goes to a question that I've brought up on this show of why can't this coaching staff continue to develop these players once they hit the big leagues. The minor league staff does a good job as to get them, prepared at least for the first season, their rookie season in the MLB. But they struggle in like their second and third years, in recent years. Royce Lewis, obviously he's dealt with injury that at least most of that isn't really on the coaching staff. But then like Edward Julian, he was the leadoff. He was leading off games in the playoffs a few years ago when they were actually winning playoff games finally. And now like he wasn't even able to crack the 40-man roster at that point. And guys like Wallner have Matt Wallner has stalled out and he just he's good. He's better than Julian. I think Matt Wallner way more deserves a spot on an MLB roster than Edward Julian does. But like he had such like a rise as he was coming up to the bigs and as he was getting, his first few, first year or two in the MLB, he was great. And then after that, just got sent down to the minors, where he, again, in St. Paul, he figured it out and then got called back up. And like, you look at even on the pitching side, Louis Varland was a starting pitcher and a pretty good starting pitcher in the minor leagues, but then came up to the MLB and struggled. And now they moved him to the bullpen, where I thought he did really, really well. And obviously they traded him to the Blue Jays, and the Blue Jays used him in the bullpen, and he helped them make it to the World Series in the bullpen. But I don't know why these teams or these players are struggling when they get up to the big leagues at this point. And if it was a one-off thing, if it was, Royce Lewis is struggling because he's injured for half the season, and Edward Julian, struggled after that, but it was more just a baseball thing. And if it was just like that, it was just those two, and one was struggling because it was injured and the other one was just flamed out, I'd be like, okay, that's just two guys. Or if it was one of those two, that's just one guy. But it seems like it's every single young player that comes up onto this team at this point. And I just wonder how much of that is on the coaching staff to continue to help them get better at this point. And they do have, new manager. They overhauled at least some of the coaching staff. They brought in Toby Gardenhire as an assistant coach, basically, and Toby Gardenhire was the was the St. Paul Saints manager the last few years, and he's been working his way up as manager and on coaching staffs of Twins minor league teams. So he's worked with these players, and so hopefully he can continue working with these players and he can continue to help them get better throughout the season and throughout their careers. And at this point too, I don't have really a list here, but it's like there's some veteran free agents out there where they're like, should they go after this 36-year-old player, pitcher for their bullpen, and or this, should they go after a veteran infielder or something like that? It's should they go after these veterans? And Rhys Hoskins is one, and that there's discussions about. And I would rather fail with the young guys on this team and not have a good record with the young guys playing than bring in a bunch of vets and go 500, because then either the young guys are taking a step forward and you succeed, or that there's three options if you're playing the young guys. One is they actually take the next step forward and the team is actually playing well and competing for a playoff spot. That's option one. The option two is the young guys take, half step forward. They look like they're poised to take a step forward next season, but it just didn't work out this year. But it's like, okay, that these players are going to break out next year. They looking like they're going to break out next year. Or three, they don't take a step forward and you need to move on from them. And I think that those three options and basically that are all encompassed by the one option of playing the young players, I think that is the way to go. I think that is the way to go this season, because one, fan interest is already at an all-time low, and maybe not all-time, but since Carl Pohlad wanted to contract the team, basically, he and dissolve the team. Since then, this is the lowest the fan interest has been in the Minnesota Twins. So if you do fail, it's not getting much worse. It can't get much worse than this. And I think that just try it, because if it does work out, you now have a new generation of younger players that are good and young and are under contract and will be under contract for at least a little bit here going forward. So I think the young players are fantastic here. So again, that turned into a different discussion maybe than I thought it was going to with just bringing up the news that the Twins and Rockies made a trade. But the big piece of news here is that, again, this came out from Jeff Passan earlier this morning as I'm recording this. I'm recording this on Friday. It is January 30th. So Jeff Passan, who's a baseball insider, he said that tweet here that says Derek Falvey is out as president of baseball and business operations for the Minnesota Twins, according to the team. General manager Jeremy Zoll will run baseball operations, while Tom Pohlad, who took over as team's control person in December, will temporarily run the business side as the organization looks for a replacement. So, again, Derek Falvey, who was making the decisions on the coaching staff and these players to bring in and draft and all of that, he got fired. He's out, and this is just kind of a continuation that started last year with like Dave St. Peter being fired and Falvey getting the business operations, president of business operations title of it's seeming like the Pohlads are just cleaning house at this point. And obviously the coaching staff, I'm blanking on his name now, Rocco Baldelli, getting fired, and then bringing in Derek Shelton, and just again, they are continuing to kind of clean house a little bit at this point of some of the higher ups in the organization. So Derek Falvey is out, and again, I think part of it too was just him taking over as the president of business operations. He was the president of baseball operations. And he also got the title of president of business operations. It seemed like this last year, he was just spread too thin at this point. It seemed like he had just too much on his plate and probably shouldn't have gotten the president of business operations role as well as baseball operations. And I think that moving on is probably the right decision at this point. And if you are the Pohlads and you're trying to return fan interest, and I don't know how much this is going to change, but it's at least an attempt to change fan perception of you and in your baseball team. It's like, hey, we're trying to do something different here, and we brought on this minority, these minority investors, and which one of the minority investors was Craig Leopold, the Wilds owner. But I think that the Twins here, like, I think that they are just going to like, I don't know how much this actually changes, because I don't know what the Pohlads are going to allow for the budget going forward. I don't know if Jeremy Zoll is going to be able to spend anything, and there's just not as many free agents out there right now. But if Jeremy Zoll is the guy running the baseball operations next offseason, I just don't know. And or I should say, and the Pohlads still own the team. I don't know if they are going to be able to actually go out and spend money and actually go out and add more to this. I just, again, I don't know if Falvey was the actual root issue here versus the Pohlads just not giving him permission or the resources to go out and make improvements. And I think that was kind of seen a few years ago when they actually win a playoff game and immediately say, like, no, we're actually gonna cut payroll because we don't have this TV money coming in as a source of income for this team. And I know too, like, everyone can say, like, oh, they're billionaires, why don't they just go out and spend like the Dodgers do. There's 29 teams that aren't spending like the Dodgers do. There's only one team spending like the Dodgers, and that's the Dodgers. And the teams that do spend more than they make, that are taking a loss, they're not spending, other than the Dodgers, are not spending that much more than they make. Like, they're losing money, but it's not a massive difference if you actually look at it. And there's only, a handful of teams that actually lose money on their baseball teams. And like, baseball is the only league without a salary cap. So they are the only owners that could possibly lose money. And so I think the Pohlads are taking it to like I forget what his name is now. They're more on like the Oakland A's owner side of it, of just trying to seeing this as an investment to more make money than try to win a championship. But I just don't know how much, like, a new owner. I think a new owner will help fan interest and probably will make them let the front office spend more money, because they're also bringing more money in, because people are willing to go spend money at the stadium and spend money on tickets, because they're actually invested in the new ownership group. So yeah, as we continue here, again, Falvey out as the president of operations, basically just the president of operations, both on the business side and the baseball side. And again, I don't know how much that changes with Jeremy Zoll, because he was the second in command on the baseball operations side. So he might have a lot of the same thoughts that Derek Falvey does on how to build the team, and he might have like the same restrictions that Derek Falvey had from the Pohlads. So I think it's a good first step, but I don't know if Jeremy Zoll is the right option. Maybe I'm proven wrong in 6 months when they trade deadline, when they're actually making trades. So we'll see if this is actually a good move here in at the trade deadline. I think is when we'll figure this out fully. But for Target Field Talkers here, we'll move on to predictions. I had no predictions come off the board, but I've got 3 going on the board. First prediction, I'm going with the typical Minnesota sports thing, where I think that Edward Julian is going to improve, and I'm going to quantify that by saying he improves enough to play more games in 2026 in the MLB than he did in 2025. And the second prediction here is that Taylor Rogers leads the Twins in saves in 2026. And third one, continuing the Royce Lewis hype train here before the 2026 season, I think Royce Lewis wins a Silver Slugger in the 2026. All right, moving on to the final team segment here of the episode. Again, this is probably the title of the episode here. There's something about in this, but we're going to make you wait on that until the very end of this segment here. So we have 3 other things to go over first. The first 2 are articles from ESPN. And one of them, first one here, is ESPN's NFL Nation did the biggest re-signing question for every team. So the NFL Nation is like the insiders for the NFL. They each took a team or different teams and they wrote about who they thought was the biggest re-signing question for every team. And so Kevin Seifert was the one for the Vikings. And he said that Jalen Naylor is the biggest re-signing question, and that is because the biggest offseason, or one of the biggest offseason questions too, is Jordan Addison, and if you're going to bring him back, if you don't bring him back, or if you trade him away, you're probably going to need to re-sign a Jalen Naylor as that solid wide receiver 3. So Jalen Naylor is according to Kevin Seifert, the biggest re-signing question for the Minnesota Vikings heading into this offseason. Another one is Bill Barnwell, again from ESPN, ranked every head coaching hire since the 2021, and ranked, went through and ranked all of them. So I've got the top few here, and then we'll get to Kevin O'Connell, and the so he ranked the top of them here, and number 1 is Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions, ranked as the best head coaching hire since 2001. Number 2, again, he won a Super Bowl, is Nick Sirianni. Number 3 is in the Super Bowl, is the Mike McDonald, the Seattle Seahawks head coach. Number 4 is the other head coach in the Super Bowl, the New England Patriots, Mike Vrabel. Again, those two very well could be number 1 here soon, if they win a Super Bowl and do well again next year. And number 5 is DeMeco Ryans from Houston. Again, took a very struggling Houston Texans team. Number 6, and actually have them succeed now. Their defense is elite. But number 6, again, turning around the Denver Broncos, he has Sean Payton. And then here is number 7, where we get to Kevin O'Connell. He said that you can't overlook the 13 and 14 win seasons. And they are 25 and 12 in one-score games, but in the 4 years that KOC has been here, that they are each year it's just been volatile. It's been back and forth with those one-score games, which he said makes it seem like it's more luck than skill in one-score games. So he that's more of a, not a mark against KOC, but more of a you can't use it as a mark for KOC. But he did say the biggest driving force. He says the driving force for the Vikings over the last 3 years has instead been their defense, when it was expected to be their offense. Because if there was a list of best coordinator hires over the past 5 seasons, Minnesota's Brian Flores might be at the very top. So again, I agree with that, and I do think that there are some other factors here in play. I think the lack of playoff success is a factor working against Kevin O'Connell, but then a factor working for Kevin O'Connell is the fact that you had a 13-win season with Kirk Cousins, and you had a 7-win season when you got, I think it was 2 or 3 wins out of Kirk Cousins before he got hurt, and then you threw together 4 or 5 wins with the hodgepodge of Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall and Josh Dobbs, and you put together 4 wins that year. And so I think that works in Kevin O'Connell's favor. And obviously having Sam Darnold lead you to another 14-win season the next year, I think that again works in favor of of Kevin O'Connell. So again, it's just the working against Kevin O'Connell in a ranking like this is just how good the defense has been. And he is not, because he is very much just an offensive head coach, and Brian Flores scheming up this defense has been a massive reason for the success of this Vikings team. But yeah, so Kevin O'Connell is number 7 on the best head coaching hires since 2021. Then the next thing I want to bring up here is Jason Harmon, who's got some inside sources. He works with the Before I Die podcast, he said that a source with inside knowledge shared Mac Jones is definitely on the Vikings' radar, but there are a number of other teams interested. One very connected Minnesota source named Anthony Richardson is a likely option as well. So Mac Jones and Anthony Richardson seem to be two options that Vikings fans should keep their eye on this offseason to either come in and compete with J.J. McCarthy, or I think in the case of Mac Jones would just be named the starter. But again, Anthony Richardson isn't one we've talked about a ton here on this show, but I think too just it's going to be too much for Mac Jones, because I think there's, you got a team like the Chiefs specifically too of needing a quarterback, and Mac Jones has 1 year left on his deal, and they could go out and trade for Mac Jones and try to have that 1 year, one more year, or 1 year of a bridge deal before Mahomes comes back, and then just hit the ground running when he's back, where you don't have, you're not drafting a young quarterback or committing to more than 1 year with a veteran quarterback, because you're assuming that Mahomes is going to be your quarterback going forward. So I think for that reason, Mac Jones is lower on my list for the Vikings to acquire, because they would have to trade for him, and it's going to be a lot more to acquire him of what I would be willing to give up. So I think it's going to be likely either Anthony Richardson or Kirk Cousins, and at this point. So yeah, but again, the breaking news here today. Again, we will continue in the Twins trend here. This is according to multiple different reports that the Wilfs and the Vikings have fired Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the general manager, for the last 4 years. He was hired in the same offseason that Kevin O'Connell was hired, after they had fired Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer in the same offseason. But there's a few things here I want to go over with Kwesi and like his tenure here with the Vikings. One is just about the firing. I think it's a little bit weird, because he was sent down to the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, and he was doing some scouting down there. And if like, my question too is like, did something happen down there at the Senior Bowl? I don't know. I'm not saying that there was something that happened down there, but just the timing seems weird, because he was sent down there to go scout some of these players, and did they just not like the reports he brought back, and were his reports super different than the scouts that they had sent down there too? And I also think it very much could be just a power struggle too with Kevin O'Connell, and Kevin O'Connell wants more decision-making power. But I think that just too, I think another thing that is a reason for the firing, I think here is the drafting. In my notes, I wrote drafting ability or lack thereof, because at this point, if you look at talent on the field, Jordan Addison is his best pick so far, which again was a very good pick talent-wise. We can talk about off-the-field issues, but talent-wise, you could make an argument that the second best pick of Kwesi's tenure as the Vikings general manager was Will Reichert, who's the kicker. And that should not be the case. You should not have a kicker be your second best, even if he is the greatest kicker to ever play. That should not be your second best draft pick. Even if Will Reichert was perfect this year or perfect in his career. It shouldn't be that he is the second best pick. And if you do bring in the off the field situation with Jordan Addison, Will Reichert might be the best pick that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has made. It's in my opinion, again, he's up there with Jalen Naylor. It's Jalen Naylor and it's Will Reichert and maybe Dallas Turner is turning a corner here too. But again, I want to give him another year of having this type of production before I crown him as certified good quarterback here. Just the drafting has not been good from Kwesi. Now, again, I do think Kwesi and his staff would say that we are drafting good players. It's just the coaching staff has not done a good job of developing it. And the reports too that I've seen is that there has been tension in the front office of the Vikings in this year and maybe last offseason too. But I think that goes back to KOC wanting more roster making decision power and who they go out and at least attempt to acquire or draft or whatever it is. And I think that KOC probably will go get more power at this point. And I think that he's going to have more of a say at this. Like, if you look at the Giants, like John Harbaugh has a massive say in that roster being constructed. Now, there's a proven track record of, the letting Saquon walk and other things like that. Yes, but the Vikings, again, just look at the big thing. I believe the big thing is the drafting ability at this point. And they did say the Wilfs came out and said that Rob Brzezinski will lead the NFL draft operations. And after the draft, they will be looking into finding a permanent general manager replacement for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. So they are not doing that right now, but they will do that after the draft. And again, just like they Kwesi can make the argument, well, we had a fantastic 2024 free agency class, which it was fantastic. You got Grenard and Van Ginkel and Cashman, and you did get you had a fantastic free agency class. But there's two pieces of argument against Kwesi in that scenario of one being the 2025 free agency class wasn't that great. But then two, you shouldn't have to rely on free agency to build your team. You like most teams are built through the draft, and you have young players and you have cheaper players too, and you have that's how successful teams are built, and they are with the players are with one team for most of it, and they're more comfortable with that team, and you shouldn't have to rely solely on free agency to build that up. And again, I think part of it too was they also didn't have a good 2025 free agency class, and I think that was part of the downfall of Kwesi. And I think another piece of it too, and now I understand too, there's something to be said that I think KOC had a big part of this next part too, but I think there's something to be said for the fact that they let Sam Darnold walk and stuck with J.J. McCarthy. And I think KOC, again, had a big part of drafting J.J. McCarthy. But at the end of the day, it was Kwesi's decision to he had the final say, and it was ultimately up to him. And I think that that they are blaming him more for that, because now Sam Darnold's in the Super Bowl, and you can't really say too at the same time, like, oh, if Sam Darnold had been on our team, you're automatically in the Super Bowl. Like, that's just not a direct comparison. I think you're better than you were this year. I think you're in the playoffs for sure, but you can't 100% say that the Vikings would be in the Super Bowl if they kept Sam Darnold. Because it's just, again, it is the NFL, and you never know what's going to happen. So, yeah. So that's the Kwesi discussion. Again, can let me know too down in the comments if what you want me to go over more with that. But those are my thoughts on why he got fired, and I do think it was probably a good decision at this point, and if not this year, next year, because again, and that's the last thing I'll say on this too is I did say the timing seemed weird, and mostly because, like, you would think that would be something that happened right after the season, but I will say it doesn't seem weird in the fact that they are trying to find somebody else to run the draft, and they just don't want Kwesi running another draft and ruining another draft at this point. And so I completely understand it from that point. But yeah, we'll go to predictions here. Had 3 come off the board. I said that J.J. McCarthy, this was last offseason, I said J.J. McCarthy is a comeback player of the year nominee. Very clearly was not. Probably could have taken that off the board a while ago. I said a Vikings O-lineman is, again, typo there, a Vikings O-lineman is at least a nominee for the O-lineman award. Those nominees came out, and no Vikings O-lineman was nominated for it. And then I said Brian Flores will be the Ravens head coach in 2026. So he is not, and he is seemingly back as the Vikings defensive coordinator. 3 predictions now going on the board is that the 2026 Vikings draft class produces a Pro Bowler before the 2025 Vikings draft class. So I think that they will have a better draft this year than they did last year. And I said the Vikings win 10-plus games in the 2026 regular season. I think they're going to get back to double-digit wins, because seemingly in the KOC era, it's double-digit wins every other year. And then the final prediction for this episode is the Vikings win the home opener in 2026. All right, moving on to the final segment of today's show, the power ranking segment. If you don't know what the power ranking segment is it is a segment we do at the end of every single episode of the 301 show, where we take a topic from Minnesota sports and rank it 1 through 10. If you have an idea for this power rankings a topic, you can comment it down below. You can also email the show. It's frozennorth30@gmail.com. But so far we've done the top 10 most heartbreaking losses, the top 10 Minnesota athletes, the biggest what ifs in Minnesota sports history, the top 10 venues in Minnesota sports. So those are some of the examples that we have already done. Today, though, we have a good one today, and it is the top 10 ones that got away. So it's athletes and coaches, and it's the top 10 athletes and coaches that you wish you could have back on the respective Minnesota team. So we'll get right into it here. At number 10 is AJ Pierzynski. Again, he was a great catcher but I could not rank him any higher because they did get a nice package back for him that included like Joe Nathan, and I believe Francisco Liriano too, but it was a very nice package back. But again, would have liked to have Przinski on top of that as well. Number 9 here is Nick Leddy from the Wild. Number 9 is Nick Leddy. He is the hometown kid. He did win a Stanley Cup with the Chicago Blackhawks and then became a mainstay on the blue line for the New York Islanders. Number 8, we get our first coach for the Golden Gophers football team. Legendary head coach Lou Holtz comes in at number 8. Number 7 was one of the weird NBA trades on draft day, but the Wolves technically drafted him. Number 7 is Ray Allen. Ray Allen coming in here at number 7 was part of that Celtics team that won the championship with Kevin Garnett. Could have teamed them up a little bit earlier and here in Minnesota. Number 6 is, again, you had him for a lot more of his career. So at number 6 is Johan Santana. Johan Santana comes in at number 6 here on this list. And as we get the top 5 up here, and we'll really reveal number 5 here. Number 5 is Brent Burns, the defenseman for the Wild. He comes in at number 5. Number 4 is the only other coach other than Lou Holtz on this list. Number 4 is Mike Tomlin. He was, I believe, a linebackers coach. He was a defensive position coach on the Vikings the year before he got hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 2 and number 3 kind of go hand in hand because he did have them for a while before they left and then ended up returning for a lot less production than when they were here. But number 3 is Randy Moss. Again, put up fantastic numbers with Tom Brady throwing him the ball. Could have kept him somehow. Number 2, again, very similar vein to Randy Moss. Number 2 is Kevin Garnett. And number 1, and again, mostly the reason I wanted to make this list, but number 1 is very easily David Ortiz. Ended up going on to hit 500 home runs, helped the Red Sox break the curse, and the Twins had him before letting him go and go to Boston. So David Ortiz comes in at the number 1 one that got away. Thank you for watching episode 54 of the 301 show. I greatly appreciate you sticking around till the end of this video. Speaking of which, do hit the like button on the video. Hit the subscribe button too, like I said at the beginning of this episode. They are both free. You can unsubscribe if you're not feeling the videos for a while. You can comment down below too where you agree with me, where you disagree with me. You can email the show at frozennorth30@gmail.com. And yeah, we will see you next time for episode 55 of the 301 show. Peace.